Imagine a city so vital, so fiercely contested, that its very name became a flashpoint in world history.
Yeah, it's quite a story.
Today, we're diving deep into why it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. And it's a story far richer than just a simple name change. Hello, I'm Edward.
And I'm Lily, and welcome to this deep dive. If you're enjoying these explorations into the fascinating corners of history and knowledge, please do like and subscribe to Dansplain, wherever you get your podcasts.
Definitely.
And you can also find more episodes, articles, partner products, and really delve even deeper into our topics at www.dansplain.xyz.
So in this deep dive, we're unpacking the historical events that, culminated in the fall of Constantinople in 1453. And we're tracing the subsequent journey of its name to the Istanbul we know today. Think of this as a journey through a truly pivotal moment. We'll explore the grandeur of Constantinople, the forces that led to its decline, the dramatic Ottoman conquest.
And finally, the evolution of its name. It's quite a timeline.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
So Constantinople's story starts way, way back. It was initially a Greek colony called Byzantium.
Right, Byzantium.
Yeah, then refounded in 330 CE by the Roman Emperor Constantine the Great. And he named it Constantinople and made it the new capital of the Roman Empire. What's fascinating here is just how long it stayed such a major power.
Absolutely. Even after the Western Roman Empire crumbled in, 476, the eastern part, which, we call the Byzantine Empire.
Which was essentially the continuation of the Roman Empire in the East, developing its own distinct Greek-influenced culture and Orthodox Christian identity.
It thrived for centuries with Constantinople right at its heart. And the location was just incredible, wasn't it? Straddling Europe and Asia.
Controlling those vital trade routes.
Yes, it wasn't just about goods passing through. Constantinople became this crucial intermediary. It shaped prices, cultural exchange, even political alliances based on who controlled access.
Precisely. Its strategic position made it a real linchpin for commerce and culture, connecting East and West. And for over 1,000 years, it stood as a major center of Christianity. Think about the symbolic power of a city like that.
And it wasn't just location. The sheer impressiveness of the city itself, that must have been a huge factor in its resilience. We're talking the Theodosian walls, these massive fortifications built back in the 5th century.
Oh, yeah.
Beyond just the strategic spot, how much do you think the perception of Constantinople as, impregnable played a role in its long survival? And maybe even in the shock when it finally fell?
That's a crucial point, actually. Those walls were legendary. They really made Constantinople one of the most heavily defended cities in the world for centuries. It projected this image of invincibility. And landmarks like the Hagia Sophia, just testaments to its wealth and cultural importance. It truly was a marvel.
But like all great powers, the seeds of decline were eventually sown, weren't they?
They were.
What were some of the key factors that started to erode this Byzantine strength?
Well, there were several interconnected factors that contributed to the gradual weakening. A major turning point was the Fourth Crusade in 1204.
Ah, right. The crusade that went wrong.
Seriously wrong. What's vital to understand is that these Western European crusaders, who were supposedly en route to Jerusalem, actually turned on Constantinople and just brutally sacked it.
Oh, wow.
It's sobering when you think about the human cost and the destruction of centuries of cultural heritage in that one moment.
That must have been just devastating. Allies turning on you like that.
It was absolutely catastrophic.
Yeah.
The sack led to the establishment of the Latin Empire, which ruled Constantinople until the Byzantines managed to recapture it in 1261.
But the damage was done, I guess.
Oh, completely. The empire was left fractured, economically depleted, and it just never fully recovered its former glory. It was a blow that really left lasting scars.
And then you had external pressures just constantly chipping away at their territory too, right?
Exactly. Over the centuries, the Byzantines faced relentless invasions. A particularly significant one was the Seljuk Turk victory at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071.
Manzikert, right. That was big.
Huge. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this defeat led to the loss of most of Anatolia, which was a vital source of resources and manpower for the empire.
And that must have really set the stage for the later rise of the Ottomans.
Precisely. As the Byzantine Empire weakened, the Ottoman Turks emerged in the 14th century and just steadily conquered Byzantine territories. first in Anatolia and then the Balkans.
So by the early 15th century?
By the early 15th century, Constantinople was essentially an isolated island, totally surrounded by Ottoman lands.
Talk about being cornered.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just external threats, was it? Sounds like there were problems inside the empire itself.
Oh, definitely. Internal challenges played a massive role. You had political instability, frequent civil wars, and a long period of economic decline. All of this severely weakened the empire from within.
Close.
Well, the tax base shrank. They became increasingly reliant on foreign mercenaries, which is never a great sign.
Right. Expensive and potentially unreliable.
Exactly. And competition from Italian trading powers like Venice and Genoa further eroded their economic strength. All of this just left Constantinople incredibly vulnerable by the mid-15th century.
So perfect storm, really. Weakening from within, squeezed from without.
Indeed. And it was into this context of Byzantine vulnerability that the Ottoman Empire, a relatively new power in the region, began its really rapid ascent.
Started small, didn't they?
Yeah, the Ottoman Turks, starting as just a small principality in the late 13th century under Osman I, experienced remarkable growth through military conquest and strategic alliances. By the time we get to the mid-15th century in Sultan Murad II, they had basically encircled Constantinople.
And then comes Mehmed II, the conqueror. He had a clear ambition, right?
Absolutely. Mehmed II, who took the throne in 1451, still quite young, he was absolutely determined to capture Constantinople.
Why is he so focused on it?
Well, he saw it as a strategic imperative, obviously, controlling those vital straits, but also, interestingly, as a fulfillment of Islamic prophecy.
Prophecy.
Yeah, for centuries, there were traditions within Islamic thought about the eventual conquest of this great Christian city.
Oh.
So that added a whole religious dimension to Mehmed's ambition, and his preparations for the siege were extensive.
We're talking serious firepower, aren't we? Like building that fortress, Rumeli Hisar.
That was a key move, yeah.
Yeah.
Right on the Bosporus, basically to cut off any potential aid or supplies coming to the city by sea. It effectively sealed them off.
And the army.
A massive Ottoman army. Estimates vary, but possibly 80,000 to 100,000 troops, including the elite janissaries.
The janissaries. Huh?
And perhaps most famously, their advanced artillery. Particularly this giant cannon engineered by a man named Orban. It was capable of inflicting serious damage on those ancient walls.
Must have been terrifying for the people inside the city. Speaking of whom, what kind of defenses did the Byzantines actually have left under Emperor Constantine XI?
The situation for Emperor Constantine XI was, well, it was dire. He commanded a relatively tiny force, maybe around 7,000 defenders in total.
Wow, 7,000 against potentially 100,000.
Yeah. It was a mix of local troops and some volunteers from places like Genoa and Venice. They did their best, repairing the aging walls, stockpiling whatever supplies they could scrape together.
Did they ask for help?
Oh, they desperately sought aid from Western Europe. But as we kind of touched on, religious tensions between the Eastern Orthodox and Western Catholic churches, plus general political disunity in Europe, it limited the response. Just a few ships and volunteers eventually showed up.
So heavily outnumbered, facing superior firepower, but still relying on those legendary walls and the famous Greek fire.
Exactly. Greek fire, that flammable liquid they use so effectively in naval battles, they were basically banking on the strength of their defenses and their ability to hold out long enough for some miracle, maybe some Western intervention. But the odds were just heavily stacked against them when the siege began on April 6th, 1453.
And the Ottomans didn't just rely on brute force, did they? It sounds like it was a pretty multi-pronged attack.
It was a sophisticated siege operation, for sure. The relentless artillery bombardment was designed to weaken and eventually breach the walls. That was constant.
Right.
Simultaneously, the Ottoman Navy tried to get into the Golden Horn, that natural harbor protecting one side of the city. But the Byzantines had cleverly blocked it off with a massive chain across the entrance.
Okay, so the chain worked.
Initially, yes. But what's fascinating here is Mehmed's audacious response. He literally had his ships hauled overland on greased logs.
Wait. They dragged the ships overland. Seriously?
Seriously. Bypassing the chain entirely and launching them back into the water inside the Golden Horn Harbor.
That's incredible. How do they even manage that? The logistics.
It was an immense undertaking, really showcased Ottoman ingenuity and frankly, sheer determination. They essentially created this land bridge of greased logs and moved dozens of ships, completely outflanking the Byzantine naval defenses there.
Wow. And they even tried tunneling under the walls.
Yes, Ottoman engineers attempted to undermine the fortifications by digging tunnels. But the Byzantines were ready for that too. They had their own countermining efforts, which led to these grim underground clashes.
So for nearly 2 months, the defenders somehow managed to hold firm against all this?
They did, against relentless assaults, bombardment, the ships in the harbor. It's quite remarkable.
But eventually, I guess the sheer weight of numbers and the constant pounding of those cannons, it must have taken its toll.
Tragically, yes. On May 29th, 1453, Mehmed launched the final decisive assault. After a night of intense preparation, wave after wave of Ottoman troops attacked the weakened sections of the walls.
And this time?
This time, the elite Janissaries finally managed to breach a key section. They overwhelmed the exhausted, outnumbered Byzantine defenders. Emperor Constantine the Clap reportedly died fighting bravely right in the thick of the battle.
A heroic end, at least by report.
And after over 1,100 years of Roman rule in the East, Constantinople fell.
A truly monumental turning point. The immediate aftermath must have been just chaos.
It was. Following the established practice of the time for a city taken by storm, Mehmed II permitted 3 days of looting.
Right.
Constantinople's vast treasures were plundered, and sadly, many residents were killed or enslaved. However, Mehmed quickly moved to secure the city. He recognized its immense strategic and symbolic value.
He saw it as the new Ottoman capital, didn't he?
Absolutely. He halted the destruction relatively quickly and actively encouraged repopulation. He invited settlers from all across his empire, Muslims, Christians, Jews.
So trying to rebuild it, make it diverse.
Exactly. This influx of diverse communities really helped to revitalize the city quite fast. And of course, one of the most symbolic acts was converting the Hagia Sophia into a mosque.
A powerful symbol of the shift.
A very powerful symbol of the city's new Islamic identity, yeah. Though, importantly, its basic architectural grandeur was preserved.
So a period of significant and rapid transformation for the city itself. And this fall had ripple effects far, far beyond just Constantinople, didn't it?
Oh, the broader impacts were profound. Firstly, the fall of Constantinople marked the definitive end of the Byzantine Empire, that last living vestige of the Roman Empire and a crucial center of Christianity and classical knowledge for over a millennium.
Gone. Just like that?
Gone. And Ottoman control over the Bosporus and Dardanelles Straits gave them huge economic and military power, controlling those vital trade routes between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean.
And how did Europe react?
It sent shockwaves through Europe. The fall genuinely shocked Christendom. And interestingly, many Greek scholars fled westward, especially to Italy,
Taking knowledge with them.
taking invaluable manuscripts and knowledge that significantly fueled the ongoing Renaissance. Beyond just the text, how do you think the mindset of these fleeing scholars, carrying the weight of a lost empire, might have influenced the intellectual climate they found in Italy?
That's a really fascinating angle.
Yeah.
It probably wasn't just about the books themselves, but maybe this sense of urgency, this direct, perhaps traumatic connection to that classical heritage arriving in a new context. It must have added something potent.
I think so, too. And it also spurred European powers to seek new trade routes to the east, specifically sea routes, to bypass Ottoman control.
Ah, so the age of exploration connection.
Directly, which ultimately contributed to voyages like those of Christopher Columbus and others. So, in a way, the fall of Constantinople and the Ottomans controlling those land routes directly spurred European powers to look for alternative paths, fundamentally reshaping the world map and global interactions.
All stemming from this pivotal moment and eventually the name change we're discussing. It really is often considered a key event marking the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of the early modern period.
A true historical hinge point. Okay, now let's talk about the name itself. We started by saying it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. How did that transition actually happen? Was it immediate?
No, not at all. The renaming was actually a very gradual process. After 1453, the Ottomans officially referred to the city primarily as Constantinople.
Constantinople.
Yeah, which was basically a Turkicized version of the Greek Constantinopolis. You'd see this name on coins and official documents, that sort of thing.
Okay, so the old name sort of lived on, officially at least.
Exactly. However, the name Istanbul was already in common informal use, particularly among the Turkish population.
Where did Istanbul come from?
It's widely believed to have originated from a Greek phrase, Eis-ten Polen,
Eis-ten Polen.
which means something like to the city or in the city. It was apparently a common colloquial way Greeks referred to Constantinople, like saying downtown or the capital.
Ah, so almost like a nickname that just kind of stuck around and became the main name over time.
Precisely. For centuries during the Ottoman period, both names, Constantiniye and Istanbul, coexisted. Constantiniye was the formal, official designation. But Istanbul was increasingly used in everyday language, especially by Turks.
So it wasn't like a sudden decree right after the conquest?
Not at all.
Yeah.
It wasn't until much, much later that the official change actually occurred.
And that official adoption came with the establishment of the Republic of Turkey in the 20th century, right? Under Ataturk.
Yes, exactly. After the collapse of the Ottoman Empire following World War I and the founding of the Republic of Turkey under Mustafa Kemal Ataturk in 1923, there was this really strong push for modernization and the assertion of a distinct Turkish national identity.
A break from the Ottoman past.
A deliberate break. And in that same year, 1923, Ankara actually became the new capital of Turkey,
Oh, right, not Istanbul.
which somewhat diminished Constantinople's former political prominence, although it remained obviously a major cultural and economic center. Then, in 1930, the Turkish government officially designated Istanbul as the sole name for the city.
So 1930 is the key date for the official switch.
That's the year. And it wasn't just a suggestion, it was presented as a mandate.
How so?
Well, the Turkish post office was instructed to only accept mail addressed to Istanbul. They would literally return letters addressed to Constantinople.
Wow, yes.
Yeah, it effectively forced international recognition and adoption of the new name. It was part of aligning the city's identity firmly with the new Republic of Turkey, shedding the remnants of its imperial, Ottoman, and Byzantine past in official nomenclature.
So a long and really fascinating journey for a single city and its name, spanning empires and centuries.
Indeed. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 was undeniably a watershed moment. It signaled the end of the Byzantine Empire, the real ascendance of the Ottomans, and a profound shift in the global balance of power.
And the name reflects that journey.
Absolutely. The eventual official adoption of the name Istanbul reflects that centuries-long evolution from a Byzantine Christian capital to an Ottoman Islamic metropolis, and finally to a major city in modern Turkey, each layer leaving its mark on the name and the place itself.
So, as you encounter the name Istanbul today, it's worth remembering it's so much more than just a label, isn't it? It's really a living testament to the ebb and flow of empires, the power of cultural evolution, and how one single city can embody centuries upon centuries of world history. What other seemingly simple name changes out there might hold equally profound stories, do you think?